Bitfarms has officially come down to $2 today. It actually went as low as $1.97 this morning at open. You can see it down there, 197. Just as I was saying, that's about where it would start to collect some support here. If it goes any lower, though, we are looking at coming down to the 200 at 188 and potentially all the way down to 180 on Bitfarms. So this is really a result of the dilution that they announced, and then their CEO search, which I think is a bit overblown because their CEO is still currently there while they are making the search, and he's not going to leave until he has a replacement. So I'm seeing a lot of this downward movement being pessimism surrounding that particular event, but I think it's a little overblown in my opinion. He hasn't left. He is looking for good stewardship of the company before he goes anywhere. And in the meantime, this all just kind of feels like noise, especially if they are able to achieve their 20 exahash or 21 exahash goal this year. That would be amazing. I mean, right now they're at what, a little over 6. We saw in the past CleanSpark grow their exahash by 6 in a month. So Bitfarms could, with the money that they have and the leadership that they have, potentially get going forward with that. And right now it's hanging around $2. Is this a buy the dip scenario? This is not financial advice and not a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. Currently, I have been slowly accumulating more Bitfarms in this area. I do see it as a promising spot to pick up more Bitfarms all the way down to about $1.80, maybe even lower, as we go into the halving, which is coming up very soon. That brings me to my next point. Bitcoin halving is in 10 days, 8 hours, 22 minutes, 36 seconds. So we've got just 10 days. April 19th is when we are looking at this happening. This is going to be a huge event. And one thing to keep in mind and to remember about crypto is that crypto loves a sell the news event. So just like with the ETF, where we saw about a week of selling after it came out, I'd probably expect a similar sort of move, a bit of a flat move, maybe potentially a downward move for a couple of days after the halving, while everyone just lets the dust settle and they start, they're done selling any that they plan to sell at the point of the halving. Crypto just loves a good sell the news event, in my experience. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen that way. I just expect it, much like I should have expected it with the ETF. It kind of caught me off guard a little bit there with the ETF because I was like, oh, wow, big money's coming in, it's going to move up. But of course, that was also a sell the news event, which happens quite regularly in crypto. And honestly, I should not have been surprised by that with the ETFs either. Let's take a look at Bitcoin today. Bitcoin is not doing so hot on the upward momentum here. It couldn't stay out of this downward handle here, which I guess was a bit arbitrary. I probably should have drawn it here. Oh well. It is currently still in this ascending channel here. You can't see it came all the way to the bottom. Got stuck at my line here at 71,956. It is just going to hang out here for a little while. It might do a retracement down to the 50 RSI and then move its way back up. That's really all I've got to say about Bitcoin. Really when it comes to stocks and crypto and other chartable assets that you can buy and sell, really what you're looking at is a combination of price action, momentum, volume, and fear. And I've got that all on my chart here, right? Well, price action is going to be the SMAs and showing areas of support at the volume here at the bottom. Momentum is going to be the RSI, and then fear is going to be this VIX fix here that I watch. And right now, fear is low. Momentum is still relatively high. It could bounce off this yellow line here, but volume is also quite low in price action. Honestly, it's been good for since April 3rd, but last couple of days it's been waning. It didn't get above the high and hold very well. So price action is kind of not great at the current moment. That doesn't mean it can't immediately ignite and go flying up. We are in a squeeze right now, a Keltner channel, Bollinger Band squeeze right now, as you can see indicated by the plus signs here. And it's been going on since March 20th. And the last time we had a nice good long one like that. Let's see here. The last time we had a nice good long one back here, it was from December 21st until January 20th, and afterwards we did a little bit further dip, and then we ripped up from there, and we moved from a bottom at 38,000 all the way up to 73,000 off of that squeeze. So I wouldn't be super surprised to see the squeeze start to end around the halving date here in about 10 days, which that should be one over, but that's it might actually be faster depending on hash rate. Ending around the halving, and then maybe dip a little bit after the halving, and then rip on up from there. That's what I'm expecting with Bitcoin. So one thing I wanted to talk about today is short interest. So a lot of our Bit farms went under $2, $1.99. That's an alert. Uh, um, talk about short interest. Now, with short interest, so this is Investopedia, and I want to talk about a short squeeze and how some of our favorite miners are in a position where they could potentially see something like this occur sometime pretty soon, probably after the halving. It's probably not going to happen before that, but something to keep in mind. Now, short interest. Preferably, short interest is below 10%. That shows a strong positive sentiment. Now, above 10% is fairly high, and it is significant when it is above 20%. So 20% is extremely high. And that's where we start seeing opportunities for some pretty major short squeezes. So I wanted to take a look at short interest, just like I did with SoFi the other day, and show that that actually had, what, like a 23, 24% short interest, which is exceptionally high and is primed basically for a short squeeze based just on that metric. Of course, other factors play into whether or not a stock will short squeeze or not, but having that short interest is key in terms of being the trigger that can send it all off. Now, Bitfarms actually doesn't have terrible short interest. It's at 9.33 right now, so it is actually in a position where it's not the worst right now. If it were to get a bit of a short squeeze, it wouldn't be overly dramatic. Could take us to this $4 price target that they're showing here, but it wouldn't like take us into the stratosphere or anything. Let's take a look at one that's actually kind of bad. Mara. Mara had, oh, this actually has dropped. Yesterday, this was higher when I checked it. It's currently at 16.9%. It's actually quite high. So it's not to that 20% mark yet. So the short squeeze would not be dramatic in this case, but it is there and it has been. Can we see a chart? Well, let me click on it. Short interest, there's the tab. Change versus previous month. So short interest has increased 14% from last month. And if it goes up just a little bit more, we'd be getting right into that 20% range right before the halving, and that would be very interesting. So this is something I've been watching very, very closely. The short interest, is it growing? How fast is it growing? On Mara, it's growing fast. Let's actually go back to Bitfarms and see how it's growing on Bitfarms. If we go to the short interest, it's up 12% from last month for their short interest. Let's go look at Riot. How's Riot doing with its short interest? Riot is at 13% right now. Not terrible. So it's like they're high, but they're not exceptionally high. 18% on Riot right now is the growth rate of its short interest. I expect that to continue to grow. I wouldn't be surprised if on a few of these we saw this short interest grow to over 20% as we get into the halving. Let's look at Bit Digital as well. Bit Digital short interest is 19%. That is rough for Bit Digital. I wonder why they're getting so much more short interest than even like Mara or Riot. In fact, their short interest has gone down 1.3% from being probably close to that 20 or being close to that 20% level on Bit Digital. So this one's primed. If we got to move up on this, it would be pretty dramatic here. And is that reflected in their upside potential? Yeah, they're seeing 134% upside potential on Bit Digital to $5.50. Let's take a look at Iron as well. Let's see what Iron has for its short interest. 1%, only 1% for Iron. That's pretty great, with a 117% upside shown in terms of what analysts are expecting on Iron. That's actually pretty great. I have my reasons I don't invest in Iron. That doesn't make it a bad stock. That doesn't mean you cannot make money on it. It just means that it's not right for me personally. And that's all. Whoops. No thanks. Let's take a look at what's another one. Hut. Let's see what Hut's got for its short interest. Geez, so many ads on this webpage. 10, so over 11% and only a 40% upside. Let's see how their short interest has been increasing. It increased by 7.78% from last month. So they're probably not going to make it to that 20% mark unless it ramped up really, really fast on their short interest. But this is just something that I am now watching closely, especially on my favorite ones, especially on big ones like Mara and Riot. Let's take a look at CleanSpark. I forgot about CleanSpark. What is CleanSpark? Theirs is only 11.71%. They're only showing a 17% upside in market beat, which I think is a bit low for them, but they have their own analysts, they have their own decisions. Anyways, CleanSparks has been actually decreasing. So we may have already seen the squeeze happen on CleanSpark. This would have to grow again dramatically for them to see another short squeeze come through. That doesn't mean that they're not going to grow. They definitely are going to grow. And of course, this is not financial advice and not a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. But I do expect CleanSpark to grow after this halving. Let's take a look at one like Square. I keep calling it Square. It's Block. They only have 2% short interest. That's interesting. It's very interesting. That it's so low. Oh, not SEC filings, short interest, and it has actually gone down 10% since last month. And that again, I'll bring up SoFi again for reference. So many ads. For reference, they're sitting at that 23% level. If this stock were to go up, it would go up pretty dramatically once those shorts had to cover, if it went enough for them to have to cover. And you can see in the last month, short interest on this stock has increased 35, almost 36%. I'm thinking honestly with this stock that if it were to move up, 50 cents, a dollar, that we would see a significant move up as shorts start to cover on this thing. This one is really primed for a potential short squeeze. Now let's take a look at some price action really quick on our favorite miners. Again, it was pretty subpar. We're up 0.5% on CleanSpark. Boo, do better. We came right down to $15 again. Actually, I think we went to $14.92 this morning, and we are moving back up again. So 15 is holding. 15 is not going to fail us today on CleanSpark. Probably it might tomorrow. Could the next day. We'll see. I really hope it doesn't, because that would be very, very dramatic. And honestly, we're coming down to $11 very, very quickly, probably, if it goes under $15. Well, first we'll come to 13. If 13 can't hold, well, 13.50-ish can't hold $11. Here we come. Take a look at Mara. What's Mara doing? Mara is flat on the day. It's doing absolutely nothing. Oh, that's ARA. That's not Mara. Mara's up 0.39% today. It came to that same low as yesterday at 1766 and is bouncing up a little bit on that. We do need to get out of this descending channel that I'm going to draw here and like this and that. We need to break out of that. It's very aggressive. It's a very aggressive angle, which tells us that if it continues going down, it will continue down in a pretty aggressive phase, down to the 200 before finding support probably. But wait, if it breaks out of this thing, we're going to turn around and come back up to 20, test that most traded level again before moving on up further with that. Let's take a look at Riot. What's Riot doing today? They're up 0.5%. Great. That's fantastic. Bit Digital, that is not Bit Digital. Bit Digital is 0. Hasn't done anything today. It's just flat, flat, flat. Might be part of that super high short interest on this thing right now. It is currently doing a Beltner, I keep saying Beltner, Keltner channel Bollinger Band squeeze on this thing right now. We have to see that come out of that. As we've seen before, that did actually end up being a big drop the last time we came out of it. We are currently moving to the downside. I hope that we don't go down past and below the $2 mark on Bitfarms or Bit Digital as well, like we have on Bitfarms. Hopefully this ends up moving up and out of this handle here and taking us to newer highs pretty soon on Bit Digital. That would be pretty fantastic and would make those shorts very sad as they got squeezed. That's really, I got to check on those today. Let's take a look at some of the plays we were talking about before. Let's take a look how Tesla is doing today. Tesla is actually up 2% today. That's pretty great. It's making a move off that 160 level. Let's see though, there is resistance kind of right where we are. We're coming right up on it and on 178.25 here on Tesla. Will we turn around and come back to test 160? We'll have to wait and see on that, but we are coming very close to that point of resistance on that. Let's see if NVIDIA is still showing weakness. NVIDIA is still showing weakness. Another daily candle, another red candle. This one closing in pretty, like, look at this long body on that red one yesterday. That really showed that today was going to also be weak. Coming down here, we have to test this 860. If it gets below that 860 level, then like I said before, 823 will likely come pretty quickly on this. And that's honestly a level where I might start considering very short-term shorts on NVIDIA, very short-term, like, because I do expect this by the end of the year to be back up at 1,000, but maybe I could see 3 or 4 days of it selling off into the low 800s on NVIDIA. So that's starting to provide more and more confidence that this in fact is a bear flag and that we may be moving lower, but we need to get that confirmation below 860 before I would say, yeah, I'm in that. Let's take a look at IWM. What's IWM doing? IWM is down 0.6%. It had that fake out breakout here on March 28th, and since then it's kind of just been a falling rock ever since the Fed came out and said, oops, changed our minds. We're not actually going to lower rates anytime soon. So that's what's going on there. That also happened with TMF. TMF came down into the 40s, down to 49 off of that news that the Fed decided to change its mind after telling us all they were going to do 3 rate cuts this year. They decided, oh, well, maybe not. They walked that back, and so did the price of TMF. Take a look at SoFi real quick since I talked about that. They're actually up 1.68% today. They're coming out of this ascending channel with some level of aggression here. This could end up being a double bottom here with 789 being the pivot point. So if it holds over 789 today, I would be looking for a move up to the 200 and potentially this gap fill up to 859 on that. And if we get a good move off of this inverse head and shoulders that I pointed out before on SoFi, if we get that shoulder, head, shoulder, and holding above this area here, this like 770, 170, 780, like, and here's the green line showing that neckline. If we hold above that for, let's say, today, maybe tomorrow as well, I'd be looking for this gap fill up to 859, potentially even up to $9 on that move. And I'd be looking for some shorts to potentially cover and send us even higher if it happens fast enough and with enough momentum to wipe out their positions. So that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at Square, Block. Let's take a look at Block. I'll get used to its actual name. Let's take a look at Block. They are up 0.5% today. It came up. It's getting a bit of a loss of its momentum here. The volume on this is actually minuscule today. It's been dropping since April 4th. I don't like that it's been moving up on falling volume. I do want to see a move up and above this $79, $80 level where this little box is before I'd be really interested in it moving back up to the high 80s, 90s, maybe even 100. Of course, I think a lot of that as well is going to happen here on after April 18th or 19th when we get the halving. In fact, actually, I don't want to do that one. I want just a vertical line on April 19th. Gonna lock that down. That's when I'm expecting to see some pretty big action on Block. So that's all I've got for you today. Short interest on some of our miners is quite high. On others, it's not so bad. Bitcoin's just kind of vacillating around. We've got 10 days until the halving, and some of our other plays are getting quite heated up in this space. So with that said, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a profitable day.